Hi Niall, it's Sean O'Neill here for SLFX CA1. I thought to give me a talking point, I'll just go through the documentation that was provided with it and just kind of mark off things in the brief. For the task description, exterior nighttime scene, set in an enclosed volume, I chose a restaurant for a hotel in Bali, and the entire place, it's enclosed, all except for, if this is the scene here, all except for the back wall, the wall that would be at your back, but I closed that off in my scene anyway. There is more pictures of the scene provided with the submission as well. For my set design requirements, I have architecture, I have fixtures and fittings, so I have tables and chairs and candles and things. And I have trees and paths and doors. For my decals, I have a graffiti in, which I put on the back wall, the wall that doesn't actually exist in it. So, because I imagined it just wouldn't take away from the level enough anyway, having it on a wall that didn't actually exist in the actual place. All of my lights have light mass, or are involved in light mass envelopes, are included in light mass envelopes anyway. I'm not sure if I use them perfectly correctly, but I've used them to the best of my ability. For the material requirements, I wasn't able to do distance-dependent normal mapping or packing UV diffuse and normal packing. I have decal mapping in the form of my graffiti. I have opacity mapping for the leaves of my trees and for grates that I have in the game, which I'll show all of this when I'm running through. I have normal painting. I painted rivets on a door. I have simple vertex painting as well. I attempted to paint to lerp between two textures to paint rivets onto the door. I painted the normals for the rivets with normal painting, and then I tried to paint the actual metal of the rivets. It didn't work out as well though, so I also did paint moss on a step. Parallax mapping, I have that on my trees. Bump offset technique that we did in class, I have that on my trees because they're palm trees, so they have that weird kind of feel about the trunk. And I have instances used throughout my game. For levels of detail, I have two different types of chair, because the chair was one of the highest poly models that I had in it. It was like 300 polys. So I have 300 poly one, and then I have one that's about 20 polys. And I have them changing. It's not distance dependent, it's the screen size dependent, so however much of the screen the model is taking up. They aren't contained in a single FBX, they're two separate FBXs, and I couldn't get MIP mapping to work. I had a look at it, and for the texture that I did use, I looked up documentation, and apparently it's supposed to generate it automatically. I couldn't find there was no MIP maps there anyway for it. I tried a few things and it didn't work, so I do have it lerping between two textures though for a level of detail. And I used the two different wicker textures that I have in it, just to kind of make the change more dramatic and more blatantly obvious. I mean, the models are different enough in shape anyway, but I tried to make it a lot more obvious by making it the white wicker first, and then when you get closer it turns to the correct texture. I designed meshes for my game in 3ds Max. I didn't bake any textures though, as most of the meshes that I was going to use were fairly low poly and unimpressive, and I used materials then and bump mapping and things to kind of really make it pop and stand out. Particles or water effects, I created a water shader by following this tutorial. It's not working perfectly, but it's there, and I did give it a shot, and I think it's fairly close. I also have smoke coming from one of my candles, and I have fog or steam rising off of my water texture, as that happens sometimes in warmer climates. You get the thin layer of steam, but it's a bit thicker than what you'd usually see by fog. Yeah, so I'll just take you over to Unreal now. This is my level here, and I'll just play it and take you through it. I tried to match the time of day in the photo as closely as possible. It's dusky. It's almost entering twilight in the photo. So there's the sky's just that really dark blue. It's not actually black yet. So I tried to match that, but the horizon is kind of throwing it off. I think that's close enough to the color there. So this would be roughly where the picture was taken from. I noticed that I have a few scaling issues with it. My level is a bit wider than the photo. These are the palm trees. They're fairly simple, really. They have the bump map on them because of the strange kind of makeup of palm trees. That's the leaves there. They have the opacity mapping on them because it's a PNG, and you can see just through it like it's a leaf. The grass here has normal mapping and should be bumpy. This is my decal. Kind of just threw some graffiti on it because this wall isn't there in the actual area, so I just added that on to cap the level off and make an enclosed space. I have these bushes, and they're really simple. They're just two planes at 90 degrees, so two orthogonal planes, and then they have the same texture printed on them with an opacity map as well. And I've seen the technique used in some games beforehand. It was used in games like the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion for fire. So if you look directly down on it, you can see that it's just two planes. And I just used that as there's quite varying foliage along the edge of the picture. So it's got trees and it's got bushes and things. So I just had two different types of bushes to add it on to try and make it not too intensive in the polycap. I've got the same over here, and I've got the grass texture there, and along with the border. This is a cement texture. These are my candles, so it's kind of difficult to see, but there is actually a housing there. It's a glass housing, and then they've got a small light with a very, I think the attenuation radius is like 800, but they just have a very small intensity. And these are, I'll show the light mass boundaries later, or just when I finish doing the walkthrough. This is one of the candles that has, some of them have the lighting function on it. It's got just kind of the warping kind of, it was based on the bloom that we did in one of the first classes, the bloom for the texture. I just applied that and made it a light function, as candles aren't a steady source of light. They do kind of flicker on and off. I applied it to only some of them just to kind of give it a bit of difference. This is one of the doors. This has normal map on it, and it's got a really nice. I'm actually quite happy with this because it's very detailed. This has the normal map, the normal painting on it. So that's the rivets that I painted there myself. I got the regular wooden floor texture and used it as a door, and then as a paneled door, and then just painted those on myself. That's just a basic mesh to make a light. And we have the thatch roof. That's a pyramid, a prism that I just kind of hollowed the inside and then put a UV map on it. So the UV map just kind of, it looked really strange on the underneath, but now it's all just kind of uniform under there. I just kind of added in some simple geometry to make it look like a light. It's not just a disembodied light now, it actually looks like it might actually have a source. This is where I tried to do some of the vertex painting, or did some of the vertex painting actually. It's the door is the main texture and has a main normal map, and then the second texture is the steel one from the stock things that come with Unreal, the starter content. And I just kind of added the steel in. My plan was to paint each of the rivets to make them steel and then the door wood, but the door doesn't have enough vertices to be that accurate, so it was either paint the way I have it there along the bottom, or like fill in the entire center as one vertex. So that was a bit disappointing. I was hoping it'd be a bit more accurate. And over here, this is where I have the normal mapping done for, this is where I have the vertex painting done for the moss. I added the moss texture here along the outsides, just to kind of make it seem a bit more worn and not as clean. And this is the door texture without the normal painting. If we head up here, we've got more candles, and this is kind of the seating area. You could, there's kind of a choice. You could sit on a chair or you could sit on the sofas. So we've got more candles. That's just one model there, just with the two separate textures applied in Max. So it's got two different elements that you can apply textures to. My chairs there, you didn't really get to see it because I wasn't really looking, but they have a level of detail in. So now they're just a really blocky, basic model. And they have the white wicker texture, which is on the sofas, applied to them. And when you get close, the level of detail kicks in, and they become the higher poly chairs. And they have the brown wicker texture that I've had. Here's my candle with the smoke coming out. It's a bit too much smoke for a regular candle. There's probably something wrong with this one. But that was as small as I could make it with my knowledge of the particle effect system. Over here is my water. It just looks like an empty box, but you see when you walk over it here, it kicks in, and it has waves. Like it rises, peaks and troughs, and it pans over the surface as water would, like ripples or small waves in the surface. I just don't know why it's only being visible at an awkward angle, but that's applied all the way over to this step here. And I didn't add the fog to that one because the fog's a bit overpowering, as I mentioned earlier, and I wanted to be able to just display the water by itself. And then I have the fog applied over here. These were fountains in the source photograph. There was a statue in the middle and those various fountains. But yeah, there's the fog applied. It's a bit stronger than what you'd see on actual water, unless it was the right conditions, but I think it looks pretty good. I was quite happy with it. So the table's just fairly low poly. The legs aren't even attached to anything, they're just under there to give the illusion of a table. And then the cloth was just used, the cloth modifier in Max. It gives a really nice look on it. This is the bar that was in the restaurant photo. So it's just got a wooden top there, and then it's just a texture. It's very lit up in the stock photograph, so I added a bloom to this, but it just became overpowering and it washed out the texture, so I just applied a light in behind this in the end. And here's my grates. That's another instance of opacity mapping, because you can see through the grate. That's pretty much my level, and I'll just show you some of the light mass things now. So I have this entire area here under a light mass, and then each of the tables, and then I just started grouping them together here, so I thought that might be more efficient. So there's one light mass volume, and then there's two in that one, two, and one. Then the doorways have their own light mass volume as well, and so does the spotlight. I didn't get to spend enough time on this, as much time on this as I would have liked, as we were kind of fairly flattened on the CAs at the time. I left it a bit later than I should have, but I did enjoy it when I got down to it, and I feel I learned a lot about Unreal and special lighting effects, what we've done so far anyway. That's my screencast. Thank you very much.